Julian Sue is different from my 8 former husbands. He is the most foolish. I hadn't even healed his second son's broken leg yet when he broke his promise and refused to marry me. I am the legitimate heir of a marquise. You are but a commoner. How could you be my principal wife? Moreover, I am destined to become the heir and eventually the marquis. With your lowly background, how could you possibly qualify as the heir's wife or the marquise? A person's greatest virtue is self-awareness. Considering your devotion to me, I can make an exception and take you as my concubine. You must understand, your status is so humble that even being a concubine would be an elevation for you. I watched coldly as he spouted nonsense. Half a month ago, his youngest son fell from a horse and broke his leg, with no one in the capital able to treat it. It happened that I was traveling through the area, so he begged me for help. I found him handsome and full of vitality, and since his first wife had died young, I proposed a deal. He would marry me as his wife, and I would heal his son. He agreed at the time, but he secretly arranged for someone to stay by my side. While I was treating his leg, that person discreetly recorded my techniques, and even quietly took a sample of myself. Invented ever, mending salve to study. This ointment was the key. Once its ingredients were analyzed, Julian Sue couldn't wait to break our agreement. My engagement to him was merely a verbal promise, without any written contract, and very few people even knew about it. Since he was unwilling, I didn't press the matter, but becoming his concubine was out of the question. I went to pack my medicine chest, bending down to the child whose leg I had only half treated. I said, "It's not that Annie doesn't want to heal you, but your father refuses to save you. Remember this, your leg could have been completely healed, allowing you to run and jump like before. It's your father who made you a cripple." Leo Sue was only 7 years old, and my words made his face turn pale with fright. Julian Sue angrily scolded me. "Stop sowing discord. Who do you think you are? Do you really believe no one else can treat second young master's leg without you? And truly, no one else could cure it." I shouldered my medicine chest and reached out toward Julian Sue. "Please settle the consultation fee. 380. 2 taels in total." Julian Sue was shocked. "You're asking me for money?" I was even more shocked than him. "Does the Onyx Dragon Manor not pay for medical treatment?" He was so angry his chest heaved, pointing at the door. "Go get it from the bursar's office yourself." As the door opened, Julian Sue's concubine, Leo Sue's biological mother, concubine Lua, was standing there. Who knows how long she had been listening? In any case, her expression was unpleasant. Without even glancing at me, she hurried to her son's side to comfort him. She was completely different from the person who, half a month ago, knelt before me, crying and begging me to save her son. Over the past half month, I had heard quite a bit about the messy affairs of the Onyx Dragon Manor. The Marquis of Onyx Dragon had 2 sons, the elder, Evan Sue, born from his first wife, and the younger, Julian Sue, born from his second wife. Both were sons by the primary wife. The manor had not yet designated an heir apparent, but Evan Sue was in poor health. When his mother was pregnant with him, she attended a palace banquet and accidentally consumed poisoned soup. Though she risked her life to give birth to him, he arrived 2 months premature and was affected by toxins, leaving him frail since childhood. The royal physician declared he wouldn't live past 25. Thus, although Evan Sue was the legitimate eldest son, everyone tacitly accepted that Julian Sue would become the next Marquis of Onyx Dragon. Sue Jun's inner circle was as complex as his father's. His first wife died in childbirth, leaving behind a sickly eldest son. Though the second son was born of a concubine, she was Julian's true love. He favored the concubine over his wife even before her death, and after she passed, he never remarried, treating the concubine as his official spouse. Hence, though Leo Sue was born of a concubine, he received more favor and prestige than Daniel Sue, the legitimate heir. I had no idea where the bursar's office was hidden in the Onyx Dragon Manor. Just as I thought to ask for directions, a child dragging a large cloth bag clumsily approached me from around the corner. The Onyx Dragon Manor had only 2 children in total, with Leo Sue confined to his bed. This could only be Daniel Sue. Though half a month older than Leo, frequent illness had stunted his growth, making him appear no bigger than a 5 or 6-year-old. He stumbled toward me, nearly tripping over the cloth bag he was carrying. I steadied him and hefted the bag in my hand. It was quite heavy. Little Daniel Sue looked up at me and said politely, "Physician Zhu, I'd like to ask you to treat my uncle. This is the consultation fee." He struggled to hand me the cloth bag. When I opened it, I found it filled with gold and jewels, solid gold and silver ingots, pearl and agate jewelry, and even a solid gold Buddha statue weighing 3 or 4 pounds. I was astonished. He was much more sensible than his father. "Where did you get all this?" I asked. He replied, "My uncle saved it for my future." He led me to see his uncle, Evan Sue, in the courtyard. A handsome man in snow, white robes sat beneath a crabapple tree, reading. As the wind blew, petals drifted down onto his head and shoulders. Daniel called out, "Uncle." The handsome man looked up. He brushed back his hair. Our eyes met. He said, "What are you looking at?" Daniel Sue stated his purpose for coming. Evan Sue stood up and bowed to me. "My apologies. The child doesn't know better. Please don't take it to heart, miss." He was very tall, with a large frame, but thin. His skin was pale too, a sickly pallor. Yet, because of his handsome features, it instead added a startling sense of fragility. Hearing his refusal, Daniel Sue grew anxious and tugged his sleeve. "Uncle, Physician Zhu is really skilled. Even the royal physicians couldn't cure second brother's leg, but Physician Zhu had him mostly recovered in half a month. Just let her examine you." He was wheedling. Evan Sue patted the boy's head, then reached over and picked up the cloth bag I'd casually left on the stone table, placing it beside himself. "It's like this, Physician Zhu," he said, "regarding my illness. The most renowned royal physician in the capital has already declared I won't live past 25, and I'm 20 for this year. If you insist on treating me, I won't object, but I won't pay a consultation fee." I thought I'd misheard. He added another line. "I won't pay for medicine either. I won't spend a single coin." Even Daniel Sue felt ashamed, covering his forehead, unable to look at me. I was so angry I laughed. After laughing, I said, "Fine, but you'll have to marry me." Evan Sue was stunned, completely bewildered. After a moment, he tentatively asked, "Does curing my illness require dual cultivation?" I shook my head. "Just to make life difficult for your second brother. I've lived this many years, but my heart hasn't grown any broader with age. Since Julian Sue dares to go back on his word, he must face the consequences. When it comes to dealing with him, I have plenty of energy and methods." Evan Sue thought I was crazy. "Wait, he doesn't like you. He won't regret it no matter who you marry. Have you been reading too many romance novels, fantasizing about him chasing you through a burial ground?" I said, "You've got nothing to lose. If you're cured, we'll live well together. If not, I'll remain your widow and protect your nephew until he grows up. As a physician, no one could be more suitable than me." He still thought I was crazy, but he was tempted. Daniel Sue had neither a loving father nor a caring mother. His grandparents treated him indifferently too. In the entire Onyx Dragon Manor, only Evan Sue genuinely cared for him and made plans for his future. Money was prepared, and capable people were arranged. But they're all servants, with no say in the Onyx Dragon Manor. If she were his wife, Daniel Sue's aunt, she'd carry weight whether disciplining him or confronting his heartless father. He shoved the cloth bag into my arms. "Betrothal gifts." I pushed it back to Daniel. "This is Daniel's retirement fund. You'll need separate betrothal gifts." Evan Sue's face clouded with hesitation. He'd given nearly all his money to Daniel, keeping only scattered silver coins for himself. He believed death was nearing. Even his will was prepared. The estate and shops, managed by specialists, would also be left to Daniel. Before year's end, he couldn't access ready cash. I said, "Put it on credit. If I cure you, all your money comes to me." Then leaning toward Daniel, "You must care for me too in your old age. I'll live long, and I'll need plenty of money. Of course, working as a physician to save lives could earn income, but that's too arduous. If life isn't for enjoyment, longevity becomes torment. I have a secret stash of gold hidden in the mountains, and no one but me can find it. Every year, I add more money to it. By now, I've become quite a wealthy woman, but who would ever complain about having too much money? I married Evan Sue. No one objected, mainly because everyone is quite forgiving towards someone who's about to die. The Marquis of Onyx Dragon was a normal father, though he might have favored his healthy, lively second son more in his heart. He still cherished his eldest son. He agreed without a second thought. The Marquise, Evan Sue's stepmother, was even easier to deal with. After all, he wasn't her biological son, and he was short-lived. Who he married had nothing to do with her. On the day of the tea ceremony, she even gifted me a set of expensive jewelry. Who wouldn't praise her for her virtue? As for Julian Sue, he didn't pay much attention to his elder brother and only saw me again on the day of the tea ceremony for formal recognition. He was immediately stunned. Concubine Luo, who was by his side, was also taken aback. Both of them looked rather haggard. The Marquise introduced Julian Sue to me, then added about Concubine Luo. Though she's a concubine, we privately treat her as a proper daughter. In law, over the years, she's helped me manage household affairs, no less capable than those from noble families. Concubine Luo had served Julian Sue since childhood. They grew up together and shared a deep bond. Julian Sue initially wanted to marry her as his primary wife. But how could that be possible? He protested for a long time before the Marquis, and the Marquise agreed to let Luo become his concubine, on the condition that he marry someone of equal social standing. He chose a wife who was physically weak and mild-tempered, who tragically died during childbirth due to complications. The Marquis and the Marquise urged him to remarry, but he flatly refused. The household was in turmoil for a long time. It was only after seeing how clever, bright, and adorable Leo Sue was that the elderly couple reluctantly let the matter drop. With just one healthy son to rely on for their old age and funeral arrangements, since he had already married a primary wife and produced an heir, albeit a sickly one, they conceded. Family harmony leads to prosperity in all things. Behind closed doors, they could do as they pleased, but publicly they would claim Julian Sue was so devoted to his deceased wife that he refused to remarry. I didn't care about the Marquis estate's messy affairs. Whatever my in-laws said, went, but suddenly, Concubine Luo knelt before me. Physician Zhu, I beg you to save my son. Tears instantly streamed down her face. What terrible luck on such a joyous day. Julian Sue shifted slightly, but didn't rise, silently glancing at Concubine Luo before turning his gaze to me. I said, "Huh? What did you say?" The Marquis and the Marquise also asked what was happening. Concubine Luo tearfully explained the situation. It turned out the physician Julian Sue had found, the one who stole my medical techniques and ointments, not only failed to heal Leo Sue's leg, but made him suffer greatly. Concubine Luo even revealed my demand for Julian Sue to marry me. This seemed rather suspicious. The atmosphere grew somewhat awkward. The Marquis and the Marquise looked stunned. They hadn't met me before, as Julian Sue didn't want others to know about our dealings, always intentionally or unintentionally avoiding encounters between me and his family members. I married their eldest son, yet share an ambiguous relationship with the second son. What kind of mess is this? Evan Sue reached out to hold my hand, asking gently, "Can it still be treated?" I shook my head regretfully. "We've missed the golden period. It's incurable." Concubine Luo collapsed to the ground, murmuring, "My son is still so young. Must he be a cripple for life?" I encouraged her. "It's all right. You and second brother are still young. Try to have another child." Julian Sue helped her up to comfort her. I added, "But why did you reveal my dealings with second brother? Were you deliberately sowing discord?" She didn't expect me to be so forthright, paused in surprise, and her expression became uneasy. I didn't. She feigned ignorance. I just wanted to clarify matters. I chuckled twice, staring into her eyes. "You wouldn't happen to fancy, my lord, would you?" I was just talking nonsense. Who doesn't know how to muddy the waters? A younger brother-in-law and his elder brother's wife. An elder brother-in-law and his younger brother's concubine. Oh my, just thinking about it is scandalous. Concubine Luo acted as if I had insulted her, her chest heaving with rage, tears streaming down her face. Before she rolled her eyes and fainted, she had fainted from anger at my words. Julian Su held her, both heartbroken and anxious, and roared at me, "How could you slander her like this?" I took Concubine Luo's pulse. "It's fine, she's pretending." Concubine Luo's eyelids twitched twice. Julian Su. Evan Su and I returned to our own courtyard. The eldest nephew came with us. He has his own room in Evan Su's quarters. The entire way, the eldest nephew remained silent. I pinched his cheek and asked, "What's wrong? At such a young age, do you already have worries?" He asked me, "Aunt, will second brother's leg really be crippled? Then, do you hope it will be?" He thought seriously for a moment. Although he often bullies me and father favors him, he is still my younger brother, and I genuinely hope he can be healthy. How kind. I patted his head. I truly can't cure him. A disappointed expression appeared on his face. Actually, it's not entirely incurable. With enough time, effort, and money, given my skill level, I could still heal him. But I don't have the time. I need to treat Evan Su. Evan Su and I haven't consummated our marriage yet. Given his frail condition, I originally thought even if we couldn't go all the way, we could still explore other pleasures. In this regard, I do have considerable experience. After all, I didn't marry those 8 former husbands for nothing. But after a full day of wedding festivities, Evan Su was utterly exhausted. He lifted the red veil, drank the ceremonial wine, and then collapsed on the bed, fast asleep. I felt rather regretful. All 8 of my former husbands, regardless of their character, were quite capable in bed. Capable men tend to have abundant yang energy. By marrying them, I essentially signed a contract, using life, force absorption to maintain youth and beauty without incurring heavenly wrath. It's like shared marital property. I actually devised this method myself. Ancient texts only recorded the life, force absorption technique, with explicit warnings to use it cautiously, because it resembles defying fate and would provoke heavenly wrath. Those who used it never met a good end. I'm not greedy. I only absorb a little each time. Others crave eternal youth at 18, but 25 is enough for me. With the marriage contract as protection, I've had no issues all these years. The only hassle is constantly meeting new men, having them marry me, then faking aging and death afterward. I prepared a herbal bath for Evan Su. His face turned green at the sight. The bath water was as green as his face. Floating on it were dead frogs, toads, centipedes, venomous snakes, spiders. He had been poisoned before he was even born. After over 20 years, the poison had long seeped into his bones and bloodstream, making conventional remedies utterly ineffective. Evan Su probably expected me to take an unconventional approach, but never one this bizarre. Though fearful and skeptical, he hesitated for only a second before starting to undress. He cooperated fully with my procedure. When down to his inner garment, he suddenly remembered I was a woman and told me to leave. I said, "A physician sees no gender. And besides, we're husband and wife." Flushing with embarrassment, he gritted his teeth and continued undressing. He clearly tried to appear nonchalant, but when only his underpants remained, composure was impossible. Shifting uncomfortably, he pleaded, "Maybe you should step out after all." I reluctantly exited, instructing him to soak for 2 full hours, no matter how unbearable it felt. I went to eat pastries under the crabapple tree. From inside the house, Evan Su's chaotic cries periodically erupted. Ah, hiss, tch, oof, ugh. I was in a pleasant mood. I never expected Julian Su to come find me, even calling me Qianling. I said, "Call me sister." In law, the head maid from Evan Su's courtyard warily shifted closer to me, preventing me from cuckolding her master. Julian Su looked exhausted. "We need to talk." He signaled with his eyes for the head maid to leave. The head maid looked up at the sky, pretending not to hear. I didn't speak up either. Julian Su was furious but helpless. After taking a few deep breaths, he said, "As long as you're willing to treat second young master's leg, I'll marry you immediately. The head maid glared angrily. I said, first, it can't be treated. Second, I'm already married. Stop joking around. I know you and my elder brother haven't consummated the marriage. Wait, why is he talking to me in such a doting tone? It's disgusting. I'm getting goosebumps. If you bring up mutual divorce with him this morning, I can marry you this afternoon. Anyway, he's dying soon. He surely wouldn't have the heart to delay you. The head maid was so angry her nostrils flared. I said, but I don't want to marry you anymore. He looked confused. Didn't you scheme tirelessly to marry me? Not tirelessly at all. I proposed. You agreed, though you later went back on your word. I added, seeing you regret, it delights me to no end. Remember, second son's condition is your fault. He didn't have to become lame. It's your faithlessness and broken promise as a father that doomed him to a lifetime of lameness. He was overwhelmed with guilt, nearly brought to tears. The head maid gazed at me with admiration. Ha, he snapped angrily. Have you no medical compassion? I see now, this is all you're capable of. If concubine Luo hadn't insisted you were hiding your skills, do you think I'd have come? She overestimated you. Oh, even angrier. He said, don't gloat. Once my elder brother dies and I become the heir apparent, I'll have you sent to a nunnery to live out your days with prayer beads and Buddha statues. I sneered coldly. With me here, did he really think he'd ever become the heir apparent? The head maid was extremely loyal. Every word I said to Julian Su was faithfully relayed to Evan Su without omission. Evan Su had just finished his herbal bath. He seemed greatly frightened, his face pale and his limbs trembling. I poured him a cup of hot tea. The herbal bath is required once daily. He gave me a despairing look, on the verge of tears. I continued, the detoxification should be complete in about a month, after which we'll focus on recuperation. He stared in disbelief, his trembling ceasing as his eyes widened. Just by taking these baths, I'll be fully recovered in a month? Simple? Do you have any idea how rare these herbs are? How precise the formula measurements must be? Do you think there's anyone else in the world who could prepare this bath? Overjoyed, he quickly stood up to offer me an apology. Then, as if fearing it was too soon to celebrate, he reined in his smile, though the sparkle in his eyes remained unmistakable. The head maid entered to serve tea, glancing at him repeatedly, puzzled by his sudden elation. He recalled the matter with Julian Su and asked me, since you feel nothing for second brother, why did you use marriage as a transaction with him back then? I nibbled on the peach he'd respectfully offered me and mumbled, well, because I'm an orphan. I've always longed for a home of my own. He froze for a moment, then raised 3 fingers to swear. Don't worry, as long as I live, I'll make sure you always have a home. I laughed immediately. My lifetime is going to be very long indeed. The ingredients needed for the herbal bath were peculiar but not exactly rare. They could be found on the mountains near the capital's outskirts. I only had enough materials for 4 days, so I had to rush to the mountains outside the capital every day to gather herbs. Evan Su assigned all his subordinates to assist me. I declined, only accepting a carriage driver to help with the travel. I created the illusion that the herbs were extremely hard to find and that only I could locate them. This moved Evan Su to tears. I left early and returned late each day. I would prepare the medicinal brew before heading out in the morning and wouldn't return home until well past dinner time. But Evan Su would wait for me to eat, having a small bite at mealtime and then properly dining with me when I returned. He ate little and had many dietary restrictions, so our meals didn't align well. I ordered dishes a few times, but the main kitchen never had them, even when I requested a day in advance. They either claimed fresh ingredients were unavailable or said they were too busy and forgot. After several attempts, Evan Su simply built a small kitchen in the courtyard. This was perfect. I could eat whatever I wanted. Both he and Dalong enjoyed watching me eat since I joined them for meals. Their appetites had grown. Dalong attended school during the day, but due to his poor health, a tutor taught him at home. Originally, he studied with Erlang, but Erlang's leg was crippled, and he stayed home every day, refusing to go out for fear of being mocked. So Dalong went to school alone. Before bed, he would come to me crying, saying that without Erlang, the tutor focused all his attention on him, making his days miserable. He asked me if I had any medicine to make people smarter. He disliked studying, as it brought him nothing but misery. He preferred martial arts training, but his constitution was weak. No one had ever considered letting him pursue martial arts. What if he died during training? Uncle is very scholarly, and I don't want to disappoint him. I patted his head. Don't worry. Once I've cured your uncle, I'll treat you next. I promise you'll be able to run, ride horses, and shoot arrows just like other children. He cheered. Aunt is the best. In the final days of the herbal bath, Evan-Su grew visibly tense. He often lay awake at night. One midnight, as I slept soundly, someone suddenly shook me frantically. Evelyn Zhu. I opened my eyes to see Evan-Su with red-rimmed eyes, tears streaming down his face. He was standing barefoot on the floor, without even his shoes on. I sat up. What's wrong? His voice trembled with tears. I'm peeing blood. Then, his crying intensified. Am I going to die? I breathed a sigh of relief and lay back down. It's fine. The last few days are just about expelling blood, a normal process, detoxifying. When the bleeding stops, your poison will be considered cured. The crying abruptly ceased. He said awkwardly, Actually, I'm not usually like this. A few more days passed. Again in the middle of the night, he shook me awake frantically once more, tears still in his eyes. He exclaimed excitedly, Haha, no more blood, no more blood. My poison is cured. Cured. Haha, thank you, my lady, thank you. He alternated between laughing and crying, holding my face and planting kisses all over. After kissing me, he froze for a moment and quickly apologized. Sorry for the offense. I'm really not usually like this. I pushed him down. Come here, sweetheart. Then I sucked on his lips and kissed him fiercely. I'd wanted to do this for a long time, especially when he cried. That broken look was absolutely captivating, making me want to bully him mercilessly. But I still had some restraint. I knew when to stop. His current condition didn't allow me to go all out. We only played a few little tricks. He let out an indecent panting sound. I said, You need to recover quickly. Wrinkles are starting to form at the corners of my eyes. We didn't tell anyone that Evan-Su's poison had been cured. After all, he wouldn't truly escape his death calamity until after his 25th birthday. He was quite nervous himself, somewhat afraid, yet also a bit expectant. His birthday falls on the Mid-Autumn Festival, 4 years ago. It was because the Imperial Palace held a Mid-Autumn banquet that his mother entered the palace and was poisoned. The Mid-Autumn Festival is both the anniversary of his mother's death and his birthday. He never celebrates it. With 2 months still to go before the festival, he was already beginning to worry anxiously. I paid no mind. I devised a detailed plan for him and the eldest son. All meals were switched to medicinal cuisine. It was a secret recipe, so I had to prepare it personally. Then came physical exercise, starting with walks. The Marquis estate is spacious, so a few laps around it would suffice. I've suspended Dalong's lessons. Since he doesn't enjoy studying, I won't force him, but he must still learn to read. Evan-Su can handle teaching him that. Evan-Su has a better foundation than Dalong. His poor health was mainly due to poisoning. Once the toxin was neutralized, his recovery progressed by leaps and bounds, whereas Dalong is simply frail and young, so we must take things slowly. We didn't inform Julian Su about suspending the lessons, and he didn't come forward to assert his paternal authority either. Firstly, he's never been particularly concerned about Dalong. Secondly, I heard he's given up on Erlang and plans to have another son with concubine Luo instead. Perhaps he's been too preoccupied with that to bother with other matters. During our walk, we encountered concubine Luo, who was patiently guiding Erlang through walking practice. A father may easily abandon a child, but a mother never could. There's still a difference between biological fatherhood and motherhood. Erlang froze when he saw us, standing rigidly like a wooden stake. Dalong called out to him, "Second brother." He ignored him, turning his head away to avoid looking at Dalong. Concubine Luo bowed to us. The eldest young master, physician Zhu. Evan-Su frowned and corrected her. It's the eldest master and his wife, she said. After all, Dalong is a child of our second branch. For physician Zhu to dismiss him from lessons without permission, isn't that overstepping? Goodness, everyone's talking past each other. Then I'll do the same. I heard concubine is planning to have another child with second brother. Tell you what, write down the dates of your menstrual cycle for me, and I'll give you some auspicious times for intimacy, guaranteed to get you a son in one try. Second brother burst into tears with a wail. Concubine Luo hurried to comfort him. I let out an oh my. Evan Su and Dalong both looked at me simultaneously. Evan Su asked nervously, "What's wrong?" I said. "Feels like a tiny insect flew into my eye." He immediately began examining it for me. Since our little intimate moment, we've grown much closer. With his face nearly pressed against mine like this, it didn't feel inappropriate at all. I got my wish seeing concubine Luo's face turn pale. How amusing. The second son's concubine has feelings for the eldest son. I wonder if Julian Su knows about it. Evan Su clearly had no idea. He even analyzed it for me. She's blaming you for her son's lame leg. Then added, how did I not see what kind of person she was sooner? Concubine Luo had been assisting the Marquise in managing the Marquis all these years and had always been quite attentive to Evan Su. Whatever he wanted, she provided. Whether it was choice ingredients, medicinal herbs, books, or antiques, she would select the finest and send them over. So Evan Su had a rather favorable impression of her. Now, he was somewhat angry. She's just a concubine, yet she acts as if she owns the Marquis. How dare she disrespect you? He wanted to approach the Marquise and demand that concubine Luo's household authority be transferred to me. By convention, that was how it should be. But why would I compete with a mere concubine? If I were to contend for power, it would be with the Marquise herself, to take full control of the Marquisite's management, who would care for the trifles concubine Luo holds in her hands. After a month of daily walks and nourishing meals, Evan Su's complexion had improved significantly. I also taught him a set of Tai Chi exercises to practice every day. We upgraded his walks to light jogging. The eldest son also wanted to learn, but I told him to continue walking. So he secretly observed and learned it after watching Evan Su practice twice. It seems he does have some talent in this area. However, this technique wasn't suitable for him, so I taught him a new set instead. He showed great interest, learned quickly, and his health improved faster than I expected. I encouraged him to play more with mud, get plenty of sunlight, and practice deep breathing while hugging a big tree whenever possible. He felt like he was playing all day, overjoyed, and developed great admiration for me, saying I could do anything and was the most amazing physician in the world. As the mid-autumn festival approached, the atmosphere in the Marquis' residence grew somber. The servants didn't dare speak loudly. The Marquis ordered us to have meals in the main hall every day, including Julian Su's branch of the family. The whole family gathered together completely, facing life and death. Concubine Luo struggled to control her emotions. Several times, she looked at Evan Su with reddened eyes. Julian Su felt somewhat sad, but not deeply. When no one was looking, he even made a throat-slitting gesture at me. I mouthed back at him. Bastard. Second young master had become lame and less lively than before. Seeing how first young master had grown taller and stronger, he grew insecure. First young master disliked eating with them, but I told him to bear with it. Everyone thought Evan Su was going to die. Evan Su himself was quite anxious and secretly wrote me a letter to hide away. I took it out and read it secretly while he was asleep. He left me 2 shops, 2 manors, a large sum of money, and a mutual divorce agreement. He said I didn't need to remain a widow for him or care for first young master, urging me to remarry after his death. I took the land deeds and banknotes, but left the divorce papers and where they were. Finally, the day of the mid-autumn festival arrived. After the final reunion dinner, the Marquis held Evan Su and wept bitterly. Concubine Luo couldn't hold back her tears either. Others followed suit, wiping their eyes. Whether their tears were sincere or feigned, no one could tell. Only Dalong looked bewildered. He trusted my words completely. When I said Evan Su had recovered, he believed his uncle wouldn't die. but the atmosphere was too solemn for him to speak up. Evan, Sue, and I brought Dalong back to the courtyard. After gazing at the moon for a while, Dalong grew drowsy. Evan, Sue carried him back to his room. He could now easily lift a 7 or 8-year-old child. I was tired too. As an elderly person, I couldn't stay up late anymore. Evan, Sue, however, was wide-eyed and alert, too anxious to sleep. I suggested, how about we do what adults enjoy? His health had recovered nearly to ordinary levels, though not as robust as my 8 sturdy ex-husbands. It would suffice. But Evan, Sue surprisingly refused. He said, if I live to see tomorrow's sun, I'll make our wedding night up to you. If I don't, at least you'll remain untouched, making it easier to remarry later. His eyes reddened, clearly reluctant to part with me. I said, what flawless jade? I'm remarried. Inner thoughts, more like 9 times married, huh? I didn't mean to lie to you. It's just... Before I could finish, he pounced on me and kissed me. He undressed me while kissing. He'd been holding back for a long time too. It was his first time, so it didn't last long. I hadn't absorbed young energy for too long and accidentally took too much. When he wanted to go for a second round, he was already exhausted and snoring loudly. Now, it was my turn to be wide awake, with shining eyes. The sleeping Evan Sue looked like a sleeping beauty. Fair skin, long eyelashes, straight nose. He no longer looked sickly, but was still utterly captivating. The more I looked at him, the more I liked him, and I recalled the appearances of my 8 ex-husbands. The ones from too long ago were already blurry in my memory. Among those I could remember, Evan Sue could rank in the top 3. He even gave me his first time. These days, there are few men so pure-hearted. I decided to stay with him for a few more years. Having absorbed yang energy, even with just 2 hours of sleep, I felt completely refreshed. Evan Sue was still asleep. He probably wouldn't wake up until noon. I tiptoed out, and several maids burst into tears at the sight of me. The head maid cried especially loudly. I said, "Shh, keep it down. The master is sleeping." They grew even more grief-stricken, with the head maid sobbing, "Madam, please accept our condolences." I insisted, "The master really is sleeping." None of them believed me. I had no choice but to say, "I'm hungry. Prepare some breakfast for me." I ate a lot. After all, I had expended quite a bit of energy. As the head maid served me, she said, "You should eat more. There will be many matters for you to attend to soon." At one point, she tried to enter the room to prepare Evan Sue's body, but I stopped her. "Let the master sleep a little longer," I said. Tears welled up in her eyes again. Dalong also woke up, and after breakfast, I took him out for a walk. We chatted and laughed as usual. The servants glared at me disapprovingly, and some even went to report me to the Marquis. Soon enough, the Marquise, Julian Sue, and concubine Luo stormed over. The Marquis frowned at my bright attire. "Evan just died. How can you carry on like this? We stayed away from your courtyard to give you time alone with him, but here you are, strolling around while he lies cold and abandoned." I said, "Evan isn't dead. Don't jinx him." The Marquis, "Huh?" Julian Sue whispered something into the Marquis's ear, who then looked at me with pity. "I never realized you cared for Evan so deeply." "Me?" They headed toward our courtyard. Julian Sue hung back and muttered to me, "Do you think pretending to be mad will save you? Dream on. I'll have you sent to a nunnery." What a lunatic. With so many people around, Evan was bound to be woken up by the noise. I quickly followed and stopped them before they could push open the door. "Evan is really sleeping. Don't disturb him. I'll have him pay respects to father and mother when he wakes up." The Marquise wiped the corner of her eye with a handkerchief. "Good child. I know it's hard to accept the truth, but Evan has already passed." Concubine Luo added, "Don't delay any longer. The eldest young master's memorial hall is ready, and the servants have gone to fetch the coffin. Julian Sue, sister-in-law, please let elder brother rest in peace." Just as they were speaking, the door suddenly creaked open. Evan Sue yawned, looking half asleep as he said, "What's all the noise so early in the morning?" The entire room fell silent. I sighed, "Alas, It's not that I don't care for him, but his family simply won't listen to reason. Everyone's eyes widened and jaws dropped. Finally, the head maid cried out joyfully, "Ah, the young master isn't really dead. The mistress wasn't lying to us." The courtyard became lively once again. The Marquis had tears in his eyes as he stepped forward and embraced him. "Whoa, my son, you're not dead." Concubine Luo was both shocked and overjoyed, wishing she could also rush over to hug him and weep bitterly. The Marquise wore a complicated expression, casting a worried glance at Julian Su. Julian Su looked as if he had been struck by lightning, his face still frozen in shock. I made a throat-slitting gesture at him, utterly arrogant. He finally snapped out of it, suppressing the disappointment in his eyes, and forced a smile uglier than crying at Evan Su. "Big brother, it's really great that you're not dead," Evan Su said. "Thanks to your sister in law, she truly is a miracle doctor, able to save even someone like me who had one foot in the grave." Julian Su froze, looked at me, and his expression turned indescribably vivid. Evan Su added, "What a pity about second brother's leg." Everyone fell silent. The eldest son suddenly called out, "Second brother." Everyone turned around in unison, only to realize that second young master had arrived at some point, his face filled with resentment. "Second young master." Concubine Luo approached him. He abruptly pushed Concubine Luo away, crying and shouting at her, "It's all your fault. All your fault. You lied to me, saying Aunt's medical skills were poor and that she couldn't cure my leg to begin with. She even saved Uncle. If it weren't for your jealousy, preventing father from marrying her, how could my leg have become crippled? You're the one who ruined me." He kicked and hit his own birth mother. Concubine Luo remained silent, tears streaming down her face. "Stop it," Julian Su roared angrily, rushing forward to shield Concubine Luo behind him. He turned to second young master and said, "This has nothing to do with your mother. I was the one who didn't want to marry anyone except her. If you want to blame someone, blame me." Second young master wailed, "I hate you. I hate all of you." The atmosphere at the Onyx Dragon Manor began to shift. Previously, everyone had tacitly assumed Julian Su would be the next Marquis of Onyx Dragon and had curried favor with him accordingly. Although the servants didn't openly show favoritism, they consistently prioritized the second branch in all matters. Concubine Luo, a mere concubine, carried more prestige than I, the legitimate daughter. In law, the servants obeyed her every word. Now, Evan Su, the rightful eldest son, was suddenly expected to live a long life. Those who had offended us grew anxious. Some pledged loyalty, others slapped their own faces in apology, and many brought gifts. Our courtyard became bustling in no time. Evan Su, however, paid little mind, kind and magnanimous, having faced life and death. He took it all in stride. It was only human nature. After all, I was different. I held grudges, but the Marquis was not yet mine to rule. By rights, the Marquise should have demanded Concubine Luo surrender her authority. Yet, she feigned ignorance, still expecting me to pay daily respects and attend to her meals and rest. I refused to go. She even complained to the Marquis, accusing me of disrespect and impropriety, to which the Marquis replied, "Such tasks are for servants. Qianling's hands are meant for healing and saving lives." Truth be told, she had been quite amiable before. The sudden reversal was probably too much for him to accept. Julian Su was equally unable to come to terms with it. Raised since childhood as the Marquis' heir, with sons of his own, he had grown accustomed to his position, only to be told abruptly that it was no longer his. Who could endure such a blow? Servants shifted allegiances with the wind, and old rivals outside the family mocked him openly. At home, his younger brother treated him like an enemy. He wore a grim, lifeless expression day after day. Half a year later, Evan Su's physical condition had improved significantly. He developed defined abdominal and pectoral muscles. His stamina increased as well. Seeing that Evan was clearly no longer at death's door, the Marquis of Onyx Dragon petitioned the Emperor to formally name him the heir apparent. On the day the imperial decree was announced, Evan Su told the Marquis that he wished to adopt his eldest nephew as his adopted heir. This was something we had discussed. I am likely infertile, a side effect, perhaps, of the life force absorption. Evans Sue wasn't particularly eager to have biological children of his own either. After all these years, his eldest nephew had been no different from a son to him. In ordinary families, adopting the legitimate eldest son from another household is not customary. Even the Marquis of Onyx Dragon cannot decide this matter unilaterally. Julian Sue must give his consent. We first informed the maternal grandparents of the eldest son. His maternal family strongly supported the idea, having witnessed Evans Sue's genuine care for the boy over the years. Moreover, Evans Sue is now the heir apparent and will become the Marquis of Onyx Dragon in the future. After the adoption, the eldest son would become Evans Sue's legitimate heir, with boundless prospects ahead. This is far better than staying with his father, who favors concubines over his lawful wife. When we went to persuade Julian Sue, Evans Sue brought numerous gifts. While I prepared only one sentence, I said, "Though you cannot inherit the marquisate, your son will one day become the heir apparent and the marquis." And then he agreed. Evans Sue looked at me with admiration. To our surprise, concubine Luo actually objected. Heavens, by what right does she disagree? She said to Julian Sue, "Dalong is your sister's only child, the sole son by the primary wife of our second branch. How could you bear to let him call others father and mother? When I go to the underworld 100 years from now, what face will I have to meet your sister?" Wait, why didn't she have this realization earlier? Julian Sue was moved by her noble devotion, gazing at her with deep affection. She continued, "If you must adopt someone, adopt second brother. If you dislike his lame leg, I happen to be pregnant again. You're with child again?" Julian Sue was overjoyed, quickly stepping forward to support her, saying, "But not our child. I couldn't bear to part with them." He turned to us. "Adopting Dalong is acceptable, but I have one condition." Julian Sue's condition was to elevate concubine Luo to primary wife status. Actually, our dynasty has no law forbidding the promotion of a concubine, but respectable families rarely practice this. Julian Sue had long desired this, but lacked bargaining power until now. The Marquis was forced to grumble his agreement. Yet, concubine Luo unexpectedly refused. She, the beneficiary, actually disagreed. She tearfully told Julian Sue, "This concubine is of lowly status, unworthy of being the principal wife. Titles mean nothing to me. Being by second master's side and receiving a shred of his affection is already more than enough." Once again, she moved Julian Sue deeply. Julian Sue said, "Don't worry. If I say you're worthy, then you're worthy." At first, we thought concubine Luo was playing hard to get, feigning modesty, but she was serious. No amount of persuasion could change her mind. Evans Sue exclaimed, "Ah, is this true love?" Then he added doubtfully, "But aside from not being called madam, she already enjoys all the privileges of a principal wife. If she truly felt unworthy, she wouldn't have overstepped boundaries at every turn." Of course, her refusal was her own business. We had already agreed to Julian Sue's terms. We adopted the eldest son, who kowtowed and served us tea, addressing us as father and mother. Evans Sue and I gave him a hefty red envelope. "Good son." Wiping his tears, he said, "I've long wanted to call you father and mother." Life after the adoption didn't differ much from before. I continued training the eldest son. Evans Sue no longer needed such basic exercises. He had taken up an official post and went to train at the Western Garrison. Within just half a month, his skin had turned dark and rough, but he also became more capable. His arms grew powerfully muscular, strong enough to lift me with one hand. Compared to my 8 previous husbands, he felt more like someone I had personally molded, making him much easier to handle. I grew more radiant day by day, becoming increasingly beautiful and youthful. In contrast, concubine Luo was constantly frowning and despondent. I couldn't fathom what she had to worry about, especially since she was still pregnant. Although, due to her insistence, Julian Sue hadn't elevated her to the status of primary wife. He had declared that the second son, along with any future children she bore, would be registered under the name of the eldest son's birth mother, counting them as legitimate heirs. Whatever else could be said about Julian Su's character, his love for concubine Luo was genuine. Watching concubine Luo grow thinner by the day, he humbly pleaded with me. I said, "It's a sickness of the heart, incurable. Only she can resolve it herself." Julian Su froze. A sickness of the heart? I've only recently grasped this after reading too many romance novels. Concubine Luo is trapped, loving without reciprocation, unable to let go, yet unwilling to cling, yearning for what she cannot have, and refusing to accept the loss. She opposes our adoption of the eldest son because she wants her own child to call Evan Su father. She refuses to be elevated to wife status because she doesn't want to become Evan Su's sister in law or address him as uncle. She loves Evan Su in her own way. When Evan Su had no one by his side before, she could endure it. But now, with Evan Su and I deeply in love, every daddy from the eldest son feels like a death sentence to her. Pregnancy breeds overthinking. She has trapped herself. Julian Su didn't understand, but he had a mouth to ask. Evan Su was off duty today, and we were about to take the eldest son out for a stroll. Julian Su suddenly burst in and punched Evan Su without a word. Evan Su was stunned, looking at Julian Su. "What's wrong with you?" Then he froze. Julian Su's face was livid, his eyes bloodshot, both hands clenched into fists. Cracking audibly, he glared at Evan Su, panting heavily, like an enraged lion, or a solitary, proud wolf. "Evan Su, what happened? Did someone die?" Julian Su remained silent, still wanting to hit him. In his current physical condition, Evan Su could easily overpower Julian Su, but he didn't fight back, only dodged while urging Julian Su to explain himself. Julian Su stubbornly refused to speak. The eldest son was on the verge of tears from fear. I couldn't stand it anymore. Rushed forward and kicked Julian Su away, shouting, "Concubine Luo's feelings for your elder brother are her business. He doesn't even know. Why take it out on him?" Evan Su suddenly turned to look at me. Julian Su broke down. "You knew all along?" I shrugged. "It's obvious. The way she looks at Evan is restrained, repressed, full of affection." Julian Su burst into tears with a wail. He sat on the ground, crying his eyes out without any regard for dignity, his legs occasionally kicking restlessly, exactly like a child throwing a tantrum when denied candy. Dalong whispered to me, "Mother, isn't concubine Luo's second uncle's concubine? How could she like my father?" I said loudly, "Your father is handsome, gentle, considerate, and immensely learned. It's perfectly normal for concubine Luo to like him. She probably fell for him when she first discovered love, then felt unworthy of him and settled for marrying your second uncle instead." Julian Su cried even louder. We only found out later. Julian Su had learned concubine Luo had emotional troubles and pressed her several times, but she refused to admit it. Worried about concubine Luo, he went through her belongings, hoping to find some clues. At the very bottom of concubine Luo's trunk, he discovered a small box. Inside the box, treasured like precious gems, was a stack of handwritten manuscripts. The handwriting unmistakably belonged to Evan Su. Then he lost his mind. Everyone in the Marquis estate learned that the concubine Julian Su cherished most truly loved his elder brother Evan Su. This even caused a fierce argument between the Marquis and the Marquise. The Marquise accused Evan Su of seducing concubine Luo. The Marquis blamed the Marquise for poor household management, stripped her of authority, and put me in charge of the estate affairs. Julian Su became like a walking corpse, often returning home dead drunk. Concubine Luo, too ashamed to face anyone, spent her days weeping. Then one day, she hanged herself. She didn't die. When found, she had barely any breath left. Though she was saved, she lost the child. Julian Su held her and wept bitterly. She cried too. Second son cried as well. The maids and elderly servants all wept. Everyone was crying together in a heap. In the end, Julian Su decided to take concubine Luo and second son away from the capital, to start anew in a place where no one knew them. The Marquise's tactics of crying making a scene, and threatening suicide were useless. Julian Su was resolute. On the day they left, concubine Luo met with me alone. She asked me, if Julian Su hadn't changed his mind, and you had married him, would you still have saved the eldest young master? I answered without hesitation, no, I wouldn't have had that much energy to spare. She smiled through tears. That's good. In a way, I've indirectly saved the eldest young master's life. She knew that if she had persuaded Julian Su to marry me back then, he would have listened to her. After they left, the Marquise began to behave meekly. After all, her only son had abandoned her, and she would have to rely on Evan Su for her old age. I stayed by Evan Su's side for 30 years. It felt like an eternity. Even the eldest son had married and started a family. I've become too embarrassed to keep depositing money into the mountain's secret treasury. The Marquis and the Marquise passed away one after another. Julian Su only returned twice for their funerals, bringing second son with him, but leaving concubine Luo behind. Perhaps he feared concubine Luo would rekindle old flames upon seeing Evan Su. Evan Su was 55, still handsome and refined in appearance. Even undressed, he remained presentable. His figure hadn't gone to fat, maintained through exercise, with visible muscle tone, but he was undoubtedly different from his youthful prime. I'd never slept with a man this old before. My appearance stayed fixed at 25, though I had to apply aging makeup daily. It felt like wearing brocade robes in the dark, unseen and unappreciated. That first day of the month began no differently than any other. Evan Su and I went to offer incense at the temple. After the rites, he asked me to accompany him for a walk in the back hills. He dismissed the maids and attendants, leaving us completely alone. Suddenly, he released my hand from his. Puzzled, I turned to look at him. He agreed at the time. The moment I faced him, I froze. He added, someone so beautiful and young, staying by the side of an old man like me. It's such a waste. When did you find out? I knew long ago. As the one who shares your pillow, how could I not notice when you never changed? Aren't you afraid of me? He smiled. I'm just glad you don't blame me. I promised you'd always have a home, but your lifetime is too long. I'm breaking my word. He gently touched my cheek. Don't cry. A young girl should be happy. Evelyn Zhu, goodbye. Come find me earlier in the next life, he said. I replied, all right. Turning to leave, I thought to myself, there is no next life.